Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 485, recorded live on Saturday, August 26th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Evil Beaker. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you.
You've been around a lot of late. It's great to have you. And also returning to the show, who hasn't been around for a little while, Jerry Snook. Welcome back.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on. It has been at least a few months now.
Yeah, it's been a while. Been a good long while. Also, if you Cordovan on the forums, obviously, but yeah. So welcome back. What have you really quick? What have you been up to of late?
Well, so I spent the summer hanging out with my son. So that was why I didn't have a lot of nights and weekends free for shows like this. And he went back to his mother's and started kindergarten, so that was fun in my personal life. And then outside of my family life, I've been playing a bunch of DDO, a little bit of Lotro, because I need to kind of up my game there a little bit on that particular game. Doing a ton of just sort of the regular video game type stuff that I do. Continuing my work to get Atari carts. My mission continues to get one cart of every game released for the Atari VCS/2600. And then really past week and a half has been Gen Con all the time, and that was a lot of fun. We even had a DDO meetup on the Friday night of Gen Con. So everyone who came out to that, we ended up having a couple dozen folks there, and everyone who came out to that, hope you have a good time. Had a good time. I know I did. So
yeah, those are always a lot of fun. We've done that a couple times for PAX out here in Seattle. It's always fun time to get people to meet up and meet some folks. And I was the first time I did that. I went to PAX back when it was still DDO was with Turbine, and you guys rented out. Not GameStop. There was like an arcade.
Chileans?
No. Like you guys had an official party.
Oh, okay.
I don't even. This may have been before you were even with the company.
I think it probably was.
But Tolero was there and Fernando was there. There was another dev there that I can't remember who it was though. And then like the people that I was with, it was me, Sig, and another guy from DDO. We're all kind of hanging out in line together. And Ann and the other guy both got lifetime VIPs.
Nice.
And I stuck my raffle tickets in right on site along those guys. Like, just missed.
Oh man! Speaking of Sig and Ann, they were able to stop by the SSG offices recently. I guess it was early August here. They were doing their road tripping through New England. And pinged me to say, hey, we're actually going to be in the area. Mind if we stop by? And we were like, heck yeah. So they actually got a chance to visit for a little while. It was nice to see them. It was the first time I'd seen them in person.
Is it still a road trip if it's a lifestyle choice?
Yeah, ongoing road trip. Eternal road trip. Yeah.
Road trip of life.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. Well, let's get back on topic. That might be a good thing to do. Let's talk about the screenshot of the week, because we didn't talk about that yet. Shinzare plots deception in the marketplace in the 330th screenshot of the week. A nice little nighttime shot. I love the moon framing with the airship. Very well done there.
Hey, I gotta ask, Jerry, what's the mechanic for when it's night and dark and raining and stuff like that in the marketplace?
There's really just a kind of weather system in place that runs in all the public areas that sort of cycles through on a game clock of night, day, and then periodically there's like a randomized element of rain that just kind of comes in. So it just sort of happens on a regular time frame. It's not consistent because it is randomized a little bit, but the night and day part isn't.
'Cause I don't think I've ever been able to see something like that screenshot. It's just I never get that opportunity for some reason.
It is actually kind of funny though. If you go from one server to another, you may have a different time of day. So
there you go.
Oh, that's just weird.
Yeah.
We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or our website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyberears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. At DDOCast on Twitter is also a really good way to do that. Before we really get into things, just kind of a follow-up production note. I'm still working on tuning my new computer. I made some adjustments from last week. Hopefully they, not that last week I felt was bad, but, making some adjustments. Hopefully we'll kind of dial in and tune the audio and all that fun stuff. So if there's a few little glitches or it sounds worse, I apologize. I'm trying to get to a better state. New computers are awesome, but you have to re-dial in everything. So many things. In any case, on the podcast this week, we're going to be kicking off a series on leveling. I got some requests to do a show on leveling and tips for that. I thought that was a good idea, and we just kind of finished our gear series. This one will not take as long. I'm going to focus this a little bit more than that was, or at least from the timing standpoint. But what we're going to do and how this is going to work is we're going to talk about levels 1 to 3. And it's going to be a little weird because we're actually be talking about the quests, like the quests that are on normal levels 1 to 3. And then we'll keep doing that through the different level ranges for leveling. So we're not specifically talking about how you're going to get from level 1 to 3. We're going to look at the quests. I thought that would kind of be a better way of doing it. We'll talk about things like what quests we'd like to do, what quests we do every life, what quests we never do, or words of wisdom and warnings for some of these quests. But that's how this conversation is kind of going to be framed. We'll start with level 1, and we're going to, especially since we're quest levels 1 to 3, we're really going to bring in a little bit more of the free-to-play, VIP, past lives kind of a discussion. But we'll start with level 1. And the first thing I think we should talk about is, do we actually run Korthos anymore? Now, this is obviously coming from more of a veteran. We've played the game a lot, have past lives kind of argument or question. But a lot of people don't anymore. You can't run Korthos on Reaper, so you don't get any Reaper XP. Which I think is a somewhat driving force. There's a lot of XP in the game, so you don't need to run.
Yeah.
You can skip a lot of quests and still get there. But let's just start. Normally, do we run Korthos still?
I do. Mostly out of convenience. Because when you're creating a level 1 character, in my case, usually because of a true reincarnation, I'm already there. I know those quests quite well. And I can just tear through them in, a couple hours. And then, boom, I'm level 3. So.
Sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I like to run them actually for the favor. You can get 75 favor total just by doing Korthos, and 42 of that is Coin Lord. So if you're trying to get your Coin Lord slot as soon as possible, running Korthos is a good idea.
That's actually a really great tip. I hadn't thought about that, but yes.
I tend to find that in my current play, if I'm alone, like if I don't find people to run with, I will run Korthos. Some of them, which we'll talk about. Because some of them are pretty easy, and you can get a little quick XP, get you some action points pretty quick, and get to level 2. There's really no penalty. There's no penalty for being level 2 versus level 1. You're not going to get penalized in Reaper XP because there's no level 1 quests that you can run on Reaper. All the level 1 quests are in Korthos. At least all the level 1s that actually give XP are in Korthos. So getting to level 2 there's no penalty to your XP in there. And it just gets you a little more hit points, a little more action points, that kind of stuff. And I'm not exactly a very good soloer. especially at lower levels. I'm pretty terrible at soloing. But in any case, so I do kind of run it, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I think it mostly has to do with in the grind that's going on right now. They're really looking for Reaper XP alongside of Racial Past Lives. You're not getting
True.
any Reaper XP there.
But you are talking specifically to a veteran
Yes.
player base when you're looking at, say, Reaper XP and all the rest. I mean, there's really two very distinct groups that are level 1 in this. Actually, maybe even 3, but there's the new player who has a very different experience than anything, worries about Reaper XP and all the rest. You've got people who are on the TR track who aren't into Reaper, and you've got the people who are doing Reaper at this point. And so I do think you have 3 very distinct groups that influence a lot whether or not you're running Korthos.
Yeah, usually the reason I don't run Korthos personally is I get so much XP running with other people and doing that other stuff really fast, and they're not running it. And so I usually just jump into groups that I can. I don't mind. There's so many quests you can run that I don't mind skipping quests and being a little ahead of the quote schedule. It doesn't really bother me at all. There's plenty of XP to go around. Having said that, let's talk about level 1 quests. And if you
the
have
most popular quest in the game is level 1.
What, the grotto?
It's true. Buy a new weapon.
Oh. Sure.
Yep.
Let's talk about
Well, what about Old Sully's grog? Don't you get a Sybaris cake out of that?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. I mean, it costs you 5 points, I think, but still.
But you get 5 points, so it's free.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. But that's actually a good point. You know, if we are going to talk about quests, let's talk a little bit about Vintage Old Sully's Grog. On the one hand, it's really just a tutorial on how to use the DDO store that was put in for free to play. But even if you know how to use the DDO store, it's very useful to do, because basically what happens is you'll go into this on Korthos Island, you'll go into the tavern there, you'll speak to the NPC, they will get you a bottle of Old Sully's Grog that you'll buy from the DDO store for, I think it's like 5 points. You'll trade it then for a starter Sybaris Spirit Cake, and you get the points to buy it. Basically, I can't remember how, by speaking to the NPC or something like that.
Yes.
Can't remember quite how it works. Yeah. And so it's really a way to get a free starter Sybaris Cake on any character that's level 1. So hey, why not, right?
Who doesn't like free cake?
Yeah.
Free cake is great. So let's talk about the quests themselves. We'll start with level 1, the actual quests. The one that stands out to me the most is the Canis Crystal, and not in a good way. This quest is actually surprisingly difficult, not because you are necessarily at risk, although that may happen, depending on your gear and how many lives you've played and if you got friends, but that crystal is really fragile. So especially if you're running it on Elite or, that crystal goes down pretty quick. So it can actually be a pretty tough quest to complete on Elite.
Especially if you're under-geared or something like that. I mean, honestly, it's really not that hard, provided you should be running Elite with the group of characters you're running. But if you're in a position where it takes you a little longer than what you might think it would take to kill the oncoming mobs in that, then yeah, that can be a real bear of a quest. In some ways, it's really the only quest that poses a challenge, really, at level 1. Or 2, I guess I'd even add. But
well, depending on your level of experience and how high difficulty you're running on. But it's when I look at the list of level 1 quests, the Canis Crystal is the dark horse. These quests all kind of give you a tutorial on how to do different mechanics in the game. Like the Hate and the Rest kind of gives just a generic go through a dungeon, find the crest, open the door kind of a mechanic, and breaking things to a certain extent. The Storehouse Secret, introduces you to a puzzle and finding things in boxes and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of that going on. Candy Crystal introduces you to perhaps the most annoying gameplay mechanic, the protection mechanic,
Right.
the escort mechanic.
And Cadith Crystal really dates back to even pre-Korthos. I mean, it goes back to the game's start. And that may be why it's a little more sensitive than some of the other kind of quests in that area, because it's really based on 2006 mechanics when the game was a little less forgiving, shall we say.
All the quests in other than Misery's Peak in Korthos are actually all older quests that were repurposed. They used to be the Lower Harbor, which is now the Inspired Quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually had to run those the three quests we're talking about, and then you had to run. Which one is that? Trying to find the right name for it. The one that's just outside the door and down. Maybe stopping the Sahagin, I think, used to be the low road. They're all a little tweaked and have different stuff going on, but functionally they're all kind of still there. But anyways, that's the one that I really wanted to bring up for level 1. I find Hayton's Rest and Storehouse Secret to be very easy and generally do them, again, unless I'm catching other people and cruising through the leveling process. What about you guys? Is there anything else that jumps out to you for the level 1 quests?
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Jerry. Oh, okay.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Well, actually, stopping the Sahagin for me has a ton of different challenges in it for a first level player. So it's the first level. It's the first quest where you actually have to disable an underground trap, or not underground. You have to go underwater to go up in that one part. You also have the cold blast and the spider at the end. Trying to, if you don't have a ranged weapon, getting at spiders can be pretty difficult. You can get a good cold blast in the face on that one, and just disabling the devices so that the ice breaks so you can go down one level. That if you're not careful there, you might step in front of a trap. So there's a lot of traps in that one and a lot of different moving around. And like I said, I believe that's the first time that the characters actually have to dive underwater. So if you're not, we had a guy playing with us a while back who could never get the mechanic of moving underwater with the mouse and the keys, and he drowned every time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, typically you have to go underwater.
I think
for the
that's
grotto,
kind of I think it's a.
That's the first one that actually poses a challenge, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in the grotto, you basically have the you can't die thing. So.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah,
I would say that I personally really like the Storehouse's Secret. I even liked it back in the old Search for the Rare Scrolls version of it. But I think it's a really fun quest for the brand new player and the level 1 player because it's got it all. It's got the bar fight, it's got the underground passages, it has some pretty decent, even for such a kind of simple quest, even a decent little plot and all that sort of thing. It's just fun. I think it's one of my favorites personally of that level range.
Yeah, that's a good one. These are all fairly short quests. They're not generally too difficult to run. I should mention the starter loot is pretty decent too. For the named items, there's some useful stuff there, but yeah, I think the.
And actually, I think I'm wrong. I think I'm speaking of the Collaborator, aren't I?
You are thinking of the Collaborator, Jerry.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, the Collaborator. That's the one I meant. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about level 1? I think we kind of
Redemption.
mentioned the ones
It has one of the most infamous DM lines in the entire game. You should run Redemption just for that line.
Sure.
Is that? Should I say it? I think I know which one you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Yes, there's not. I don't really put any of these into my must run because again, they're level 1. They're not a ton of XP, but they're all they're mostly other than the ones we mentioned can be pretty easy to deal with. So let's move to level 2. So we'll, kind of break it down into categories of our favorites and ones we really like, ones we always run, kind of thing, and then the ones that you might want to avoid, particularly for newer players, which is really where I think a lot of this questions of, hey, help me level is coming from probably more the perspective of a newer player than someone who's run 20 past lives. Maybe Mr. Beaker, would you like to start us off here?
So the quest that I like the most in this level range is the one that people tend to avoid at this level, and that's the Butcher's Path. And I like that quest because it is very challenging at second level. So if you really want to test yourself and your group of people, run through, and now that we got Reaper, oh my gosh, run through that quest on Elite at second level, and you'll really see how good you are. I mean, it's not only just the mobs, the groups, but finding and disabling the traps, all those stuff. I really like that quest, even from the earliest days when we first started playing.
Is that the hardest level 2 quest, do you think?
Boy, it's got to be one of them.
Yeah, I mean...
Could be. It's up there.
It's one of the longer ones. Misery's Peak is longer. I tend not to run Misery's Peak just because of how long it is. And for how much XP you get, it's a long quest. But if you need to run for Korthos, I mean, by all means. There's also some sections in there that are a little annoying to navigate, and like that big cavern you have to climb up and find the 3. For some reason, I always tend to get lost in that spot. But
the only other quest that might be a challenge on the same level is recovering the lost tome. That's the one that's out in the lighthouse, and the reason for that is there's those water fights that I've seen take out a fairly high number of people, and those like lightning traps that you don't necessarily have in Butcher's Path.
That lightning room is pretty brutal, even on Elite, especially if you don't have ship buffs to get energy resist and stuff like that.
But I agree. I think Butcher's Path is probably the most challenging. It's also, I agree too, it's also my favorite as well. It's a really fun quest.
Well, and you can't overlook Dirks either, because that one's full of a lot of kobolds with lightning bolt as well. And there's that, and slimes, and there's that fire trap that sneaks up on you if you don't know where it is.
Yeah, the kobolds and the ringleader, I think, is probably the only other one that is, in terms of difficulty, is probably up there. Just from the ogre at the end can pop you pretty good. There's a shortcut to it that makes it pretty fast. That's why a lot of people tend to run it. There's kind of a dark horse in here too, which is Stealthy Repossession. Which is not so much a very difficult quest, other than the fact that there's certain mobs that, unless you look at the name, look exactly like other kobolds, that if you kill 5 of them, you lose. You just fail. So, as a veteran player with access to invisibility potions and those kind of useful things, if once you know it can actually be pretty easy, at least to complete the quest. You might die at the end, but it's at least somewhat easy to complete the quest. But for a newer player, that I would probably put Stealthy Repossession at the top of my avoid list for this.
Yeah,
this level
I
range,
think so.
Just because of that mechanic of if you kill 5 of the wrong thing, you lose. Probably the second most annoying mechanic in.
I actually think probably more people run Stealthy Repo for favor way above level than ever run it at level because of just the difficulty of trying to stay stealthy in that. But if you are trying to be a stealth build, this certainly is a good test of it. So,
yep. Another dark horse that I think is worth mentioning is Haberdasher, which on the surface is a fairly easy quest. It's short. There's actually only 9, I think up to 9 scorpions, so you can run it on Reaper. But if you don't get a Reaper to spawn, you won't get Reaper XP. You still get the extra heroic XP, which is nice. But the reason why I put this as a dark horse is, on the surface, vermin seem like something that should be fairly easy to kill for an adventurer. But they don't have... There's this weird balancing thing where vermin don't have a lot of special abilities. So, in the balancing thing that happens is they tend to hit harder and have a few more hit points than your average random monster type. So
And hit first.
yeah, and they burrow and it can be kind of annoying. So Haberdasher can actually be a little bit of a tricky one for the unsuspecting new player.
I would
Well,
point
and there's
out.
another thing about
Go ahead.
haberdashers is the collectible cabinet is one of the few places you can get a Kyber prayer pamphlet.
Ah.
Because I know I ended up farming that when I needed one more for crafting one night, and I think I had to do that quest 12 times before I finally got it.
It also provides House Kundaric favor, which is some of the most valuable favor.
Yes. Definitely worth doing if you can do it. So what are some of maybe the easier quests for folks to run in this?
So I wanted to call out a level 2 quest called Arachnophobia. You'll see it in the harbor pretty much right when you get into the area. It's special because it's one of the few solo-only quests in the game. Because it's a solo-only quest, it's probably, it's pretty easy. And you're just really killing some spiders and that sort of thing. It also gives you Coin Lord favor, which is fairly useful. And so that's one I would recommend really for a new player to play. Plus, if you ever are low level and you don't have your friends around or whatever, and you're just looking for a quick solo quest, can't do much worse than that. Otherwise, I really do like the Dirk's Got a Secret quest chain. Most of the quests, if not all of them, are in the level 2 range. And you can just speak to Dirk the Deranged in the harbor, and you'll find him outside. And he used to be inside, but now he's outside, right?
Yeah, it used to be in the Leaky Dinghy.
Yeah. And anyway, good set of stuff to run there. That whole chain, you can tear through it pretty quick and get a lot of XP. As a matter of fact, if you do skip Korthos on leveling, you probably will find yourself running this particular adventure chain because it's pretty good XP.
Well, and you have to mention the Muckbane because that comes out of Dirk's.
Yep.
A handy weapon.
Yep.
Do you have any recommendations for the easier quests here, Mr. Beaker?
Like Jerry said, if you're finding yourself, by yourself and wanting to run a couple quick quests, Miller's Debt, that's another quick one that you can do yourself. And Retrieved Stolen Goods, I believe, is another solo one.
Retrieved Stolen Goods is part of Baudry's chain, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually what I was talking about when I meant the chain. Dirk's, you're right, because of the Muckbane. Baudry's is the chain one that I was talking about in terms of if you skip the Korthos, do run the Baudry's chain because you get pretty good XP out of that. Yeah. I always, for some reason, I get those two names confused, but yes, there you go. A man named Baudry Cardamon. So
there's another dark horse in that though. That first one, you have to protect the box, which is a little easier these days. But if you're not careful and if you're running it on higher difficulties, like soloing this on Elite can be a little tricky. If you don't take care of those shamans, they can lightning bolt the box pretty quick, and there's just a lot of stuff that you have to kind of manage at the same time. Pretty easy in a group, but if you're by yourself, protect Baudry's interests is a little tougher. I want to throw out Bringing the Light, and Info is Key. Bringing the Light is a really short quest. There's not a lot of things to fight in there. Very doable for a newer player, particularly on a lower difficulty level. Info is Key is probably... Info is Key and Kobolds and Ringleader are the two that I always kind of look to do. They're both fairly short. Info is Key has not a very large number of things to kill. There's some oozes, but other than the end fight, you're never really going to fight more than 2 things at a time. Maybe 3. So it's a fairly easy quest. It has a really good amount of XP to it as well. So that's Info is Key and New Ringleader are kind of the two that I always look to run just from an XP to time standpoint. And Info is Key is pretty much always my first stop when I land in Korthos. I pretty much always start there, hit Info is Key, and then New Ringleader is usually like the last stop that I do.
In terms of loot, And if you don't have it, there's probably really only a couple items that are worth mentioning. Probably number one, of course, is the aforementioned Muckbane, which is an item that will not take damage for destroying while attacking oozes, which makes it one of the most popular items in the game. I mean, you could have it as just kind of an emergency backup all the way really through your teens if you want to, and be just fine. So that is a very popular choice, probably the most important item in this level. The other one I would call out is in Butcher's Path. There is an adamantine mall called the Mall of Vengeance. It's not much of a mall, it's just +1, but it is adamantine. And that is useful when you're going to be fighting, say, Warforged and iron golems, things like that, a little bit later on in the heroic levels, generally the upper single-digit range. And so if you don't have an adamantine item and you're a fighter, this can be actually a pretty useful item to have, to put in your backpack to get you through some of those areas.
Yeah.
There's also in Garrison's missing pack, that's where you can start getting those +1 ability trinkets. I can never remember the names of them off the top of my head, but the strength one, the wisdom one, I think the two of those are in there. Then the other ones are spread out in other quests, but that's a good one to do as well. A little tricky too, because you got the underwater maneuvering in there.
Yeah, and there's a pretty Garrison's has a pretty long side quest too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That can be avoided if you're looking for time or ease of completion as well. But the two we didn't really mention, there's two level 2 quests that are both coin lards, I believe, in the market by the Rusty Nail, the Sunken Sewer and Missing in Action, both of which are pretty short, pretty easy. One of them Missing in Action does have some traps, but you don't actually need a rogue to disable them. You need to be able to find secret doors to disable them. They function a little bit differently, and you can disable them before they actually activate. But both of those quests are pretty reasonably easy and doable.
Back on loot, I'm just kind of looking at some of the loot lists for these quests too. There is one other item that's worth mentioning only because it has a colorless augment slot, and I believe that might be the lowest level item with an augment slot that you can naturally find in the game. And that's the Jade Ring that you get at the end of Walking the Butcher's Path. So if you have an augment to use, it's a ring, so, you know, for a little while or whatever, it might be something to keep in mind.
You can get random slots that you can.
Yeah.
If you key a colorless item for crafting, it goes down to level 1.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Naturally occurring.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're already crafting and all that, then that's fine. But if you're a newer player or something like that, that may be an option for you.
Yeah, that pretty much covers level 2. I kind of mentioned Misery's Peak a little bit in passing. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on Misery's Peak specifically. To run it, don't run it.
If I were to go back in time, I would tell the dev team, cut it by 1/3.
It's a long one.
Yeah. But it's got some interesting stuff in it because it's the first time you see a dragon. It's the first time you see a mind flayer, even though you never touch them. That's kind of cool. I know when we first ran through it, we will go through the door and there's a big dragon staring in your face. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, and then haha, no, you just got to run around it.
It does have a nice tie into a later quest, which actually was because this came out after we had Archaics's Valley.
And for the newer player, it really kind of wraps up your storyline time with Selamos and that adventuring party that you're seeing during the tutorial and things like that. So it's got some nice voice work and some nice action. You're right. I do like the story of it. It is very long for that level. It's certainly the longest quest in this level we're going to be talking about. And it does tend to be a little repetitive in a few spots.
Bring haste potions.
Yeah.
There was a time where I think the guild haste potions you can only get the minimum level 4 or something like that. He would run it. This is back before Reaper, so it was a little less XP in the game. But he would run Misery's Peak, but he would only do it if he had haste potions, because it just takes so long to run through it. All right, let's move on to level 3, which has a level 3 is an interesting level because there's 3 quests, or there's 3 sets of chains that start at level 3, but don't finish at level 3. I guess technically the catacombs too, but that's only one quest that's not level 3. So this starts to bring up an interesting conversation about how you're going to run quests. It is, I would say, somewhat commonplace for veterans to break up the quest chains by level. So you run them at level 3, and then you go back and run the ones at level 4, and so on later.
Particularly for running Reaper.
Yes, particularly for running Reaper. If you're running these on normal, you don't really need to do that. Again, mileage may vary depending on your skill and gearing and all that stuff, but it is something worth noting, and just kind of being aware of, and you gotta make the decision. Especially maybe I'll start by talking about the ones in Tangleroot, which are short quests. Tangleroot, though, goes all the way up to level 7. So it starts level 3 and goes all the way up to level 7. So there's certainly something to be said about breaking that one up.
But I think you're right. There are 2 big chains in level 3, and that is the catacombs and the waterworks. So.
Yeah, well, and STK.
True.
But those ones have less of a level range. Tangleroot has an extreme level range. It's a lot of quests, and a lot of favor. And if you could run it on Reaper, I think that you would see a lot more people running those because they are shorter quests, which would kind of help maximize your Reaper XP. You can't run it on Reaper, though. And I don't know. There's never really been an official statement or reasoning why. I think there might have been a comment. I could be making this up though, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think there was a comment a while, maybe really early, that they didn't want to make Tangleroot Reaper in part because of how long its level ranges are. So they didn't want someone to go start running Tangleroot on Reaper at level 3 or 4. Because that's what level it starts at, and then if you just keep running the chain, suddenly you're like a level 4 running a Reaper quest that's normally a level 7 quest, which seems like a good way to die. There were a couple
reasons, yeah. So. And the other one is those first few quests are exceptionally short, and I think at the time that Reaper was being implemented, there was a concern that it might be too farmable for Reaper XP, so people wouldn't level up and they would just run that first quest or 2 over and over and over again. I do think that there is a case to be made for allowing Reaper and Tangleroot, but we just haven't done the work nor made the group decision to allow Reaper and Tangleroot. But who knows? Maybe someday it'll happen.
Yeah, so there's Tangleroot. The one I like to run Waterworks. I tend to split those up. I tend to split kind of all of them up these days, but the one that I would say though that really sort of makes sense to split up is STK, which that's Cloven Jaw Scourge Blockade, right? If you run, I usually make that the last quest I run at level 3, with the idea that I take my level and then run part 2 of STK at level 4.
Yeah.
Those 2 quests the STK quests tend to be are longer than a lot of the other ones. There's a couple of spots where they get kind of hard, but they're good XP. They're fairly manageable. Waterworks I think is very manageable. Great XP again. it really helps if you have a party. If you are running on Elite or Reaper, and you don't have acid resistance, you have to watch out for some traps. Although the one that you really have to watch out for is a level 4 quest, so that's something to keep in mind of.
Yeah.
What quests do you guys like or avoid in here?
I would call out another solo quest, one of the few solo quests also called Home Sweet Sewer. It's funny. It's kind of ridiculous. It goes way back when, and all you do is you basically have these dogs chasing you, and you need to get them out. And it's got exploded by my favorite kobold Scrag in the harbor, and I just think it's fun, and fun. So, but that's another solo quest at level 2. Otherwise, I really like running 2 quests that kind of don't get run a lot. I suspect, in terms of level 3 quests, they may be the least run of the group, but there's the section of Cerulean Hills, which is a wilderness area that might be the next wilderness area you go into after Korthos, that has 2 quests in it. The captives and where there's smoke.
Where there's smoke. Yep.
Yeah, and both of those are kind of on either side of the map, and they're both fun little quests. But like I say, the people don't tend to run them so much anymore. I think too many people are just kind of zooming past it, running waterworks and things like that. But I would recommend checking them out because I think they're both fun quests. And the Captives has a neat kind of outdoor combat section that I find pretty fun too. And
Yeah.
I just really enjoy both of those.
I would say that those are newer quests, so they tend to. I find them to be a little bit more challenging than the rest of the quests at level 3, for what they are. Not to say that they're really hard. I wouldn't put these in an avoid category, but they do tend to justify a little bit on the more difficult side of things than your typical level 3 quest.
Yeah, agreed. But if you're sick of running waterworks, yeah, I recommend. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw in the one quest that we like to do to test our builds is Cobalt Assault. And we always swear to each other, never use the shrine. And we'll see how long you last, because it's a challenging quest, because it's especially if you don't have a cleric or a favorite soul or any other kind of self-healing. It's very long. It just cobalt after cobalt after cobalt, and if you want to see how much damage your shiny new axe does, or how well your physical and magic resistance is doing, this is a great quest to kind of get a gear for where your build is at level 3.
Definitely an easier quest in a group.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a good quest too to kind of work on tactics and that sort of thing, and help increase that communication as a group, because it's really just sort of a wide open area and a wave assault of kobolds that go on till you kill 300 of them, right?
200,
yeah.
And the lizard guy at the end.
Mm-hmm. Something can take a little time. It's definitely one of the more challenging quests at level 3. We didn't talk about Catacombs very much, which is a lot of level 3 quests. The last one's level 4, which is super short, although can sneak up on you a little bit if you're not ready for it. But the level 3 quests, especially the first 3 Catacombs, are all pretty reasonable. The 4th one, where you have to run around and kill, I think that's the crypt of Dryden, I think.
Dryden, yep.
Yeah.
The big square.
That's kind of the painful one of all of them, just because it's the longest of them, probably by a factor of 2. And it's a lot of skeletons. But these quests all, in general, are, other than that one, are very short. They're pretty manageable, especially on, this is a great place for a newer player to kind of have the experience of killing undead.
Yeah, Catacombs is a lot of fun. I think that when you get to more veteran players, I think it maybe gets skipped a little more in favor of some other things. But it does offer a lot of bang for its buck in terms of, XP and kind of condensed storyline in one general area and all that sort of thing.
There's
So,
some good loot out of it. As
That's
well.
exactly what I was going to say too. If you
sure
go all the way to
would
the end, Blade of Inquisition,
Yep.
and it's been bumped up since the old days. So I think it has a red slot in it now, and that is your first real ghost touch weapon that you can get for your character.
Word to the wise for Catacombs, particularly for the newer players, is keep an eye on your quest advancement. It will be probably one of your first experiences of having to go talk to various people to advance your quests, and how many times you have to talk to them to make sure your quest is advanced. So when you go into a quest in this one, make sure it doesn't say in red at the bottom, you're not on this quest, or you won't get your reward. But it is also worth mentioning that this is not a free-to-play pack. You do have to buy it.
right, that was actually going to be my point here, is that yes, you do have to buy it, but if you are a new player, there is something you want to check out called the Dungeons & Dragons Online Starter Pack. Particularly around the holidays, this sucker tends to get down to a couple of bucks. And it comes with 250 DDO points, some XP elixirs, a permanent cleric hireling for level 3, and the catacombs. So for just a couple of bucks, a lot of, I think, players who are dipping their toe into making a purchase will end up with the starter pack because it lets you be premium. It is very, very inexpensive when it's on sale, and it comes with catacombs. So, yeah.
Another quest that I would recommend avoiding would be Red Fang the Unruled. Unless you're like Evil Beaker and really like testing your builds. It's a longer quest. There's a lot of traps, a lot of vermin. Again, vermin tend to be a little tougher. There's a nasty poison trap room. It's a little easier if you have a rogue these days. It used to be you had to get through half the room to disable it. Now you can disable it on the way, so it's not as tough. But this is one that I would avoid.
And if you don't have a Featherfall item, you can run through a gate and pretty much fall to your death.
Yeah,
I've seen that happen twice now.
It is a fun quest, but in terms of leveling, it's worth experiencing. But if you're looking to level and you're a newer player, and you got plenty of XP, this is one that I would skip.
I agree with DDO Central. I like Red Fang. I like it in part because it is difficult and painful and all that sort of thing sometimes. So
I'd also put Swipe Signet on the list.
Ooh,
it can be a rough quest. Probably more because of the casters than anything else. And there's one particular section where the casters have the high ground, and it's a long hike around to get to them if you don't have a ranged weapon.
Casters and archers.
Yeah.
Those archers can carve you up pretty good in that one.
There was a time where the Swipe Signet was considered one of the most difficult quests in the game. It's clearly been eclipsed by a lot of other content nowadays, but there was a time, right?
At level 3, I think it's a toss-up between Swipe Signet and Red Fang for me, and I'd probably lean towards Swipe Signet, just based on my very long ago past experiences of completing Red Fang regularly, and the Swipe Signet being a place that I died a lot in.
Yep.
So, and you're talking about a level range where, other than cakes, you can't raise people, so it's a little tricky. Anything else you guys want to say about level 3s?
Yeah, the ladder in Sacred Helm, that was always. It's like, oh, we got to do this quest again. We got to climb up that 3-story ladder.
Right. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
very long ladder. One of the longest.
But that's the Helm of Shog. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yep. Shog's Helm.
Yellow slot, Intimidate 7, I think.
Yep, that's a good one to hit. If you can pain through the giant ladder, then that's a good one to get.
All right, so we'll close this section out. We'll go around the table and basically give us your roadmap. You're a new character, level 1. From your level 1 to your level 3 quests, what are the quests that you would expect to run? Just kind of a quick little roadmap. Maybe I can start. You want to go? Go for it.
Yeah, I'll go. Well, so as I was telling the guys before the show, I actually did this week. I went to a new server. I had no money, no nothing. Started up a brand new first level character. Didn't drink any pots. Didn't do any tomes. No nothing. And I started at Korthos. Went all the way through, and we actually finished last night. Misery Peak. And got to the end, and we got a rank and a half into third level. And that's the first time I'd done that in I don't know how long. I mean, typically we start characters at either fourth or seventh level sometimes if we're starting them from scratch. And we had a great time, another guildie of mine. And, all the way through that, we got, like I mentioned earlier on, the biggest thing out of that I thought that was amazing was the 75 favor. And I think even though that's where we ended, I think after just cresting third level, I think from there I would start with the assortment of third level quests in the harbor, or second level quests in the harbor, the Kobold's new ringleader, do them on harder elite, and then move yourself into the waterworks. That would probably take you all the way through third level to fourth.
Sure.
Yeah, I stick to Korthos. Between say the VIP XP boost, having a tome of learning from one of the pre-purchases of the X packs, and just running it on elite, even on the TR train, I'll just go through Korthos and run it all on elite. And sometimes I'll even have a XP potion going to make it easy. And I just sort of tear through Korthos. By the time I'm done with Korthos, I'm usually past level 3, and I'll head straight into the marketplace and run quests there. If I don't have a good weapon for that character, I usually tend to run the one that gets you the nicked weapons.
Sharn
Syndicate. Otherwise, I'll kind of head back and do the harbor quests and the ones we talked about here today.
So I'll give you kind of a I don't want to say more advanced, but more power gamery roadmap of let's run the fewest quests in the fastest amount of time and level 2 stuff. If I run Korthos, it's usually just Hayton's Rest and Storehouse Secret, mostly because the Cadence Crystal can just be a pain, and that unlocks the rest of the island. So, I might run Hayton's Rest and Storehouse Secret, and then I go straight into Info is Key, and Info is Key is one that, depending on the quality of my character, I might run that on Reaper Elite Hard Normal. Or Reaper Normal Hard Elite, depending on the build of the character. Just because I can run that pretty quick and get a lot of XP out of that. And then I generally start going counterclockwise around the harbor. So Haberdasher, Dirks, Butcher's Path, Lost Home. Sometimes I skip Lost Home, not because I don't like it, more because I forget that it moved.
I know, right?
But that's kind of how I tend to wrap around the harbor. I skip stealthy repossession these days, just because I don't need it. We didn't talk about it. I also tend to not do Smuggler's Warehouse, not because it's hard, but just because of a mild annoyance factor of trying to find the red gems. It's just not very timely, I guess you could say. I do try to make sure I hit the 2 in the marketplace, just for the Coin Lord favor, and I kind of keep an eye on my my level and ranks, and usually I try to finish with the ringleader. That's kind of I just kind of tend to go in that counterclockwise direction, more for ease than anything else. If you wanted to make it a little easier on yourself, I would say maybe go the other direction. Start with Baudry, or do Info is Key, and then circle clockwise and do Baudry's chain and bringing the light, and kind of go in the other direction. It might be a little easier.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why I go counterclockwise, to be honest. Now that I think about it, I might start to go in the other direction. And then once I hit level 3, kind of a common thing these days, I think, is to run the first 3 parts of Catacombs and stop before you get to that long crypt. They're all pretty short. Definitely hit Waterworks, and the group that I've been running with a little bit of late. That's kind of it's one of those groups that they've got it down to a science. Like they've written out the path, right? You hit these quests in this order, and if there's no XP bonus, then that's what you need, right? Although with an XP bonus, they've been skipping a few. But we did do the ones in the Sterling Hills. Didn't do Cobalt Assault just because it's kind of a longer one, but looking for the shorter ones, and Waterworks is kind of through. And even on Third Plus Life, that'll pretty much get you most of the way through 4. Usually we're holding levels until we hit a lot of those quests that we want to hit. So hopefully a couple different roadmaps for you. Hopefully that was helpful. We will continue. So my plan here is to do every 2 weeks. We'll do another set of 3 levels. It'll kind of follow the same format.
I guess there was one other thing I'd mention, and that is particularly when I'm running levels 1 to 3 quests here, I really don't worry much about my gear or equipping my character out or any of that sort of thing. I tend to find that the quests in general are easy enough, especially if you're doing the Korthos Island path like I am, to just you could basically be naked and get through that stuff, and you can be using the starter great axe even if you're a wizard or whatever, and get through hitting things and getting through all the way to level 3 there. So while a new player may be far more concerned about equipping their gear, and that's all fine, I think after you get used to it after a while, I don't even worry about my gear until at least level 4. So that
I don't
just
keep TR gear at all.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a couple things I would say especially if you're going to be looking to do some Reaper, get a Ghost Touch weapon, just for the Reapers.
True, that's true. I'm not doing Reapers, so yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, even at level 1, I'm kind of just I keep as much low level gear right now because I've been doing a lot of chain lives. Well, I've been chain lifing, by which I mean like every month I can get a life in. But I basically keep as much low gear that I used last time as I can, as I have room for. But that's the first thing that goes, is the lowy stuff. So.
Yeah.
All right. We can get into game news. There's not a whole lot of game news. Kind of a slow time.
The game news is all happening behind the scenes, and that is basically we are working heavy in the middle of our sprints doing Ravenloft. So all the content devs are just heavy cranking out content, and the system devs are working on sentient weapons and ASMR and other things. And our engineering team is hard at work on, working on the true reincarnation system to improve that, to prevent the rare but very serious issue of people sometimes losing their gear. The engineers are also working to bring back the DDO store inside of the game. So those are the 2 things happening there. But that's really why we don't have a lot publicly to say, because we're really just in the thick of it, building up content and things like that. So I think in terms of the public stuff, we'll probably see something about sentient weapons in the relatively near future. And then we're going to see hopefully a little bit more about, ASMR here as well in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So
you did mention, we kind of had this on the show when several of the devs were on, but you did have a post saying that sentient weapons will be high-level items acquired through Ravenloft. The personality will be separate from the rest of the item, and then its core will be using an augment-like system, which hopefully means that some of the back-end work there will be able to roll into the current augment system that, because I know you guys wanted to update that and make it a little more friendly.
That's actually part of the kill 2 birds with 1 stone approach that we're doing. So yes, is the answer to that.
There's a question in the chat, if Ravenloft at the end of the year, will there be an update in October between what we had and then Ravenloft? Which I think you guys have said that Ravenloft's next.
Yes. Right, I think theoretically, if we did get in a position where we felt Ravenloft was going to be late in the year, we probably would have some kind of interim patch thing, at the very least, to add a little bit of Night Revels work in October. But I mean, the hope is to have Ravenloft be next. So
And there was, and this was never committed to, but I know that it's been said a couple of times that the goal was kind of Halloween-ish.
yeah, that
But
just makes the most sense, right?
well, yeah, I mean, thematically.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
So Jerry, do you guys got like garlic hanging around in the office and little vials of water and stuff like that?
No, not really, not really. Actually, it's been pretty cool. We're for a lot of the devs, they're D&D people for quite some time now, and so the idea of really tackling Ravenloft is super exciting. So I don't just mean that in a marketing way. I mean like the team who do play D&D and all that sort of thing. This is probably among the coolest stuff we've gotten.
Yeah.
So.
Ravenloft is. I mean, back in the day, Ravenloft was so popular that it just boggles the mind sometimes
Yeah.
that at why it hasn't it's taken this long to make a comeback.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Bonus days for the week. It's a strength in numbers weekend, so you get plus 5% XP for every member in the party other than you. That's for quests and raids. So
Yes.
That's
So
fun.
Von 3, then run Von 5.
Well, you'd have to run Vons 1 through 4 before you can run 5, but yes.
True.
That's it's definitely a way to go. Or just, run Tempest Spine, because you can run Tempest Spine without flagging at all.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Store news, you dress to kill 30% off of Mirror of Glamoring, cosmetic outfits, hats and helmets, and for some reason the bypass timers are in there. Is that because you needed to find a place to put bypass timers in the sale? The sale rotation?
I guess, yeah.
I always thought that was funny.
That does seem a little strange, doesn't it? Yeah.
The weekly freebie, you can get a free medium guild renown elixir with a coupon code FUNWITHGUILD. Hey, that is
free
fun.
guild XP renown.
Who doesn't like that?
Why not? Do it.
Community news. We had the 247th Chronicle. The guild for the week, a very bad guild, hits episode 100. Has community spies. Very bad guild hits at 100. That's on DDO stream, right?
No, that is actually on YouTube. That is
okay.
Dirty Williams' ongoing series.
Oh, okay.
AVBG is how you'll find it on YouTube. A very bad guild. He's been chronicling that guild on his channel for quite a 100 episodes now. So I figured it was, since he hit a milestone, it was worth shouting out.
Yeah.
So.
The guild for the week is the Snaggletusk Clan, an Argonestan-based smaller guild with newer and older players that help each other out. And they have a great dental plan, apparently. But just like they pull one out and shove one back in. What kind of dentistry do you have in DDO? You wonder.
I don't know.
Magical,
That's
I guess.
A good question. Yeah.
Prestidigitation? Does that work for dentistry? Evil Beaker, you're the resident expert, right? So.
Yeah, it's usually doesn't come up in conversation.
The comment for the week: which gem is the best?
I like Zizou's Spangle because it has a great name.
Gee, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I was gonna go with the Soul Gem Earth just for the adamantine rituals, but
Ooh,
yeah,
there you go.
I guess I got to go with that too.
Yep.
Fansite news. We got a shout out for a review of Update 36. The Damsels of DDO went to Valak's Mausoleum. Mickey continues to write about her raiding experience, and Bachelor Gore continues his DDO Let's Play. Voodoo Spice's latest Reaper Life tackles Sins of Attrition. Always a fun and interesting quest to run. Mary retrieves the stolen goods on Reaper level or on Reaper 4. Very well done. That is the capstone of the Baudry's chain. So,
yeah,
I guess you can actually run the second one on Reaper, even though there's no monsters to kill. You don't get Reaper XP, but you get the extra heroic XP. So,
yeah.
Will a Reaper spawn in that quest?
No, because there's no monsters. Reapers only spawn in relation to monsters.
Okay.
We should have box Reapers.
Yeah, there you go.
Mimics. Just replace some of the stuff in there with mimics.
Ooh.
So, I don't know. Galargo says the last gem he sold is the best. There you go. Let's see. DDOCast news. DDOCast Splat is still going. We're still wiping every week. Sometimes in the middle, sometimes at the end. We were cruising through into the deep. We were doing pretty good, and then we got to that one where you got to break the water statue, and there's a whole bunch of spawns.
Yeah.
And the one thing I couldn't paralyze with my paralyzing arrows was the champion. That went south in a hurry.
Yeah.
But we are still doing that on Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. Also, the Scavenger Hunt Extravaganza 2. You have a little more than a week to do that. Submissions need to be in before September 5th, which is the Tuesday after Labor Day, or the Tuesday after the first Monday in September.
Nice.
So, and there was a question in the how many people are participating, and does anyone have an opportunity to knock off Claver, who has been posting a lot of pictures in the thread. And there are two things to say that. One, it's hard for me to say how many people were playing. Last time, I think I had submissions of 5 or 6 people before the end, and then got a bunch of submissions at the end, because people don't tend to trickle in their submissions. But I think I had around 100 people participating last time. But also, if you get there's the way the prizes are broken up. There's a prize for the top score and a prize for the second place score. After that, a bunch of the prizes, you get one raffle per point you get. But the other half of the prizes is if you get 30 points, you have the same chance as everybody else.
Oh, cool.
So there's kind of a balance there of some of that stuff is, even if you just get 30 points, you have the same chance to win his Autos box as someone who got 500 points. If someone gets 500 points, that'd be impressive if they did. But so don't feel like you have a worse chance of winning everything. There are several prizes that if you get 30 points, you have the same chance as everyone else. So, and 30 points is not that hard to get in this. So, check out the thread for the rules there. If you have any questions about it, you can always email me or get a hold of me. So, that's what we got there. I think that means it's time to go to Lightning Post. Did have a fair amount, some feedback on our episode from last week. We're talking about update 36 and reviewing that. The Fuzzy Duck said overall he enjoys the new quests. He wasn't as keen as Graveyard Shift as the number of mobs you could end up fighting at once, but otherwise liked it. He doesn't understand why we would not go into the cheese room. No. There you go. So as far as
you should go to the cheese room.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was talking about his Blade Forward Monk. We had mentioned that he doesn't use the recon. He said he didn't use recon in the previous show. The Blade Forged spell-like ability one. Basically, is because he's got about 500 positive spell power, 32% chance to crit on healing and stuff, and 160 positive healing amp. So the Fists of Light pretty much covers him. I'd say, yeah, I would hope so. So there you go. And then he also said for repeaters versus Great Crossbow, he generally plays it by ear on his rogue. The Epic Double Cross bow slotted with Endless Night Augment is a good combination for crowd control and debuffing. Where the other one is amazing for those big numbers. So, yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing a lot, actually, is basically if the light repeater is not doing much damage, I switch to a Great Crossbow. That's pretty much how I've been playing it. So, Foji Video says the damage reduction of Reaper seems percentage-based, which I would
believe
say
that's accurate.
Yeah. Well, and that makes it scalable really easily. So,
yep.
Of course, if the mob has their own DR, bigger hits are better. Yes. My Artificer has had noticeable problems when running into things with damage reduction, like skeletons and zombies. Not that I don't have ways to kill them, but it is more difficult. Amber Science says regarding an Eternal Flask of Jump, he'd never buy one because it places the cooldown of all the other flasks. I agree. But hey, if it would be handy to have for those times where I need it. But he does also mention the Azure Sky Jelly Cake, plus 30 to jump with a 17-minute duration that lasts through rest, and possibly death too. But I don't know if that's correct. But it does last a long time, and I definitely agree with that. Freya Milkson says, no need for arties to fear undead. Grab you a rune arm that does AoE electric or fire and spam that. Yes, that works very well.
I was going to call out the Silver Slinger too when I saw this comment. That's probably the one crossbow for undead.
Well, yeah, but
it's mid-level
level
16.
I meant like level
Yeah.
4.
Oh, okay.
That was where I was really having the problem, was level 4. So that's only going to get you... I mean, yes, the Silver Slinger is great, but only if you can use it.
True.
So, there you go. But yeah, there's ways to get around it, and I've been doing that, but a little harder. Yeah, there we go. So with that, I think we'll get to closing out the show for this week. Jerry, is there anything you want to plug?
About the only thing I'd mention is that I am working on a new event that I'm hoping to debut, hopefully soon, within the next couple of weeks here. And it's going to be an event per server where if you think you have some of the best DPS, we're going to put it to the test. It'll be a reality show style kind of competition. It'll take place on DDO stream and in game, so stay tuned for some more information on that.
That sounds fun.
Cool.
I'm curious how you're gonna do the actual. Oh, I know what you're gonna spawn big sacks of hit points, aren't you?
I am indeed. Yeah.
The real question though is this going to be a DPS test, or are the big sacks of hit points going to fight back?
No, straight DPS test.
All right.
Yep.
That'll be interesting. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Mr. Beaker, anything you want to mention before we head out?
Yeah. So if you're a D&D player, pen and paper, and you're a DDO player, you're familiar with the 3.5-ish, we'll call it ish, system. If you've been wanting to try out the new Starfinder RPG, the PDF for that is still only $9.99 through the Paizo store. If you weren't one of the lucky people to pick up one of those books at Gen Con. I am 200 pages in and I'm loving it. I haven't played a science fiction role-playing game in, gosh, it's got to be at least 15 years. And it's a great distraction sometimes from just playing D&D or fantasy-based role-playing games over and over again. So hopefully in the very near future, I'm going to be playing a little bit of that. But for a 598-page book, the PDF is only $9.99. You really can't miss that purchase.
Were they selling a hardcover of that at Gen Con?
Yep, it sold out in 6 hours.
Yeah, that was because I remember on Thursday, that was why the exhibit hall, when they opened on Thursday, was a madhouse. I ended up sitting in a long line. The only time I sat in a line at Gen Con was to wait to get in the exhibit hall was because of all the people wanting to get that book.
Yeah.
So.
That's fun.
Yeah, but the fact that I think the price is eventually going to go up to either $19.99 or $17.99 if I remember correctly. But for $9.99, it's a steal.
It probably took them 6 hours to sell it out only because people had to get through the line.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks guys for being here, and thanks for everyone for listening to the show. Hopefully this was a helpful start to this idea of leveling, and we'll be revisiting this every other week for a while, at least until we get through heroics, and then I'll reassess for epics. But that's the plan there. Thanks also to all the other contributors of DDOcast, and thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making DDO happen, and thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode or question you'd like to hear us answer, or maybe something you'd like to hear us debate on our debate shows, which we will be having one next week, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment or you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. Really love getting comments. It really kind of spices things up a little bit, and we get to read the comments back. And you get different perspectives than ours, which is fantastic. The closing tip for the week comes from Propane on Sarlona. He says to find nice people or guilds and check the DDO forum site for suggestions. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your tests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.
Bye-bye.